Hey, joining us now, 9:12 here on the John Fredericks Show. He's the director of Americans for Prosperity in Virginia. He's doing a fabulous job in AFP, growing in Virginia since Tyler took over by leaps and bounds. And the reason why I love AFP is they get things done. There's a lot of organizations, all talk, no action. This is the organization of action. They've got field people all over Virginia. They knock on doors. They make phone calls. They're policy driven. And you got to get off the couch and get involved. If you are looking for a way to get involved, but you don't want to work directly for a candidate, this is the way to go. AFP is the way to go. It's the number one volunteer army in the country, and they move the needle on policy issues. And their leader in Virginia joining us now, Tyler Foote. Tyler, how are you?
Good. How about you, John?
Fantastic. Let's get to AFP's role going into the fall election, so that our listeners understand. By the way, if you want more information, sign up for their newsletter. Go to afp.org/Virginia. Everything will come up right there. Or if you want to be a volunteer, they've got 80,000 volunteers now in Virginia. 80,000, big number. So Tyler, AFP Virginia, what's going to be your role going into the all-important November election?
That's a great question, John. Well, let me start by saying that AFP is not an electioneering organization. So very rarely will you see us advocate for a specific candidate, and we certainly don't endorse candidates. But our mission is to educate citizens and give them an opportunity to have their voices heard in the political process. So there's kind of two ways that you can do that. The first is by connecting them with their legislators or their local elected officials, which we do on a regular basis through our lobby day, through our patch-through calls where we're advocating for a specific issue, or our famous online petitions. And then the second way is obviously by encouraging like-minded citizens that agree with us on the issues to vote on Election Day. And we want more people that agree with us on the issues to vote. Now, on the other side of that. On the other side of the coin, we also believe it's important to hold elected officials accountable for their voting records. So there's also two ways that we can do that. Sometimes if they don't agree with us on an issue and they vote the other way, then we hold them accountable by educating their citizens on that bad vote and then encouraging them to take action. Or we can simply do a thank you campaign, and really it's an opportunity to prop up our champions of freedom. And so you might see us engage in some of that activity come towards line, regardless of what we do on an accountability standpoint. The biggest thing is that we are going to identify citizens that are with us on the issues of limited government, free market principles, and then encourage them to vote in November. So starting next month, we move into what we call a persuasion campaign, where we persuade citizens on issues like lower taxes, smaller government, making sure that we rein in government spending. And then once we are able to persuade those citizens on those issues, then we'll go back to them in late October, early November, and encourage them to vote. And so I think what you'll see is we'll hopefully see a higher turnout for limited government, free market conservatives in Virginia than what you've seen in the past because of our GOTV Get Out the Vote efforts. Is that we've knocked as a national organization at this point, we've knocked more doors and made more phone calls this year across the country. This year alone than we have in 2014 and 2015 combined. Mm-hmm. So our grassroots army is larger than it's ever been. We are investing more in full-time staff and part-time staff to help us communicate one-on-one with citizens and turn them out. And so our Get Out the Vote efforts are going to be pretty large, if you will, and probably bigger than what the Republican Party is able to do, simply because we just have a robust staff and also a robust volunteer capacity to really help educate citizens and then turn them out in November.
That's the thing about what AFP does that nobody else has. It's you're nonpartisan, you're issue oriented. You can get people involved because you're not advocating or endorsing a particular candidate, and you get off the sidelines and you get things done and you move the needle. What I always tell people looking for someone to volunteer if they want to see change is the time value proposition with getting involved with Americans for Prosperity is higher than anything else you're going to find out there, because the time that you invest as a volunteer into AFP is going to come back in actually getting results. And you guys got a lot of results, especially in Virginia. You mentioned getting out the vote, obviously. What about registering new voters? There's a lot of people, as you know, Tyler, in Virginia that have checked out of the system. They're just not registered. They don't think they can make a difference. How do you reach new voters?
Yeah, that's a great question, and honestly, John, that's not something that we engage in. And I think we tried to do a voter reg effort in maybe 2012 or 2014. I can't remember which year, but honestly found that in terms of return on investment, there wasn't a whole lot there. It was really expensive to register those voters, educate them, and turn them out. And we didn't get a whole lot of bang for our buck in that regard. So I know that there's other organizations in Virginia that are center-right as well, and they are engaging in that effort, which is great. I mean, that's what you need in coalitions, right? Everybody needs to focus on their comparative advantage, and ours is educating and then turning out voters, and we'll let coalition partners across the state focus on registering voters. That's just not something that AFP engages in, and it's found to be really a worthy investment at this time. But I think it's also important. You were talking about when you're looking at the time value proposition. I think the thing that I always like to tell our activists is that the work we do the day before Election Day is just as important the day after Election Day, because that's when the real work starts. That's when the accountability for elected officials start. A lot of times we'll get a new set of elected officials in office. This year we'll have obviously a new president in office. And so that's when the real work starts and holding them accountable for their voting record. And so, because we're not an election-based organization, we don't pull up roots after Election Day this year. We'll still be around with a full staff
Right.
in all corners of the state, advocating for free market principles.
Well, the thing is, immediately after the election is over, you start working on the 2017 Virginia General Assembly and your issues there, right?
Exactly. And then obviously in 2017, we also have a big election with, electing a new governor. And
Yep.
so that's something that we're going to be keeping an eye on as well, and making sure that we got good conservatives on our good free market conservatives on our side. And so we have a busy 2017. And definitely this issue is really important, and it's sucking up all the oxygen right now. But I think in Virginia, 2017 is just as important as 16 is.
Well, and then we're going to be center stage because we're one of the only states that have anything that comes up in 2017. So it's after the presidential election, and then Virginia becomes kind of the first bellwether as to, if people are happy with what's going on, if they have buyer's remorse, whatever, depending on what's going on. Tyler, your role and AFP's role at the upcoming Cleveland convention, what do you think?
And I'm glad about that, John, because while people are up in Cleveland voting and potentially, depending upon how things go, potentially fighting amongst themselves about delegates and what exactly that looks like, we're still going to be in the field knocking doors, just like we would any other weekend. Now you saw me at the convention, at the GOP convention in Harrisonburg
Yes.
this year, a couple weeks ago, actually. And that was a great opportunity for us just to reconnect with a lot of our activists and share our vision of the state with our activists and elected officials. But at the RNC convention in Cleveland, there's just going to be too much noise going on for us to really break through. So we're going to still be in the field, knocking doors, communicating with citizens one-on-one, just like we would any other weekend. And in fact, we'll probably get more done because we won't have to worry about any of the noise at that point.
That's
so
right, because
it'll be a standard weekend for us, but an important one.
That's right. I mean, it's certainly an opportunity, as you say, to kind of be front and center while everybody's thinking and doing something else as it relates to the Republican National Convention in Cleveland. A couple weeks ago, Terry McAuliffe restored the voting rights of 200,000 felons in Virginia. This come under fire by Republicans on constitutional grounds, and also many saying, like me, that it was done for political purposes. I'd have preferred if McAuliffe waited until November the 8th, and then he could have taken the politically charged aspect off the table. Has AFP taken a position on that?
We haven't. That honestly is not an issue that we engage in. It's not free market oriented. But I will say this. It's pretty clear that Governor McAuliffe has a pretty large understanding of what his constitutional rights are. And I think I agree with you and many Republicans across the state that think that was done for political purposes and probably done outside of his constitutional authority. And so, I honestly have not been following that issue as closely as I should, John, so I don't know where it stands in terms of whether it's going to the courts or not, but I think it's something that, we definitely need to look at closer and make sure that can't happen again. It's kind of a frightening situation when with just a stroke of a pen, our governor can reinstate, hundreds of thousands of people's voting rights. And, yes, they're criminals, and that's bad. But, I mean, even if they were criminals and for whatever reason they had their voting rights revoked, I don't think one person should be able to have that type of authority. That needs to go through our state legislature so that we can hold those guys accountable at the end of the day if we don't like their decisions. And so he's kind of taken a page out of the Obama playbook and using his executive authority at a pretty large scale, and that's alarming. I think we need to find some way to roll that back, whether that's in the courts or whether that's in our state legislature. We need to do something to roll that back to make sure just that can't happen again.
It really is amazing how many of these executive orders Obama has done. And when he first started doing them, if you recall back, people were aghast by them, right? I mean, everybody was up in arms. The media was up in arms. And it was like, this is unprecedented. And I forget when he first started, he did a couple. But now he's done them so much that it's almost become rote. And so it's like when you look at what McAuliffe did, Mark Warner, it was brought to his attention. He didn't do it when he was governor. He said he was a Democrat. He said, no, my lawyers say it's not the role of the governor to do this. Tim Kaine was governor. Tim Kaine, he's pretty partisan, as you know. He said, no, this, I talked to internal people and this isn't outside of the Constitution of Virginia, and Tim Kaine is a constitutionalist, believe it or not. So they didn't do it. Doug Wilder, when he was governor, it came to his attention. He didn't do it. And so we get McAuliffe doing it. And we had some play on it for a couple of days, but it's like people are almost immunized to the fact now that executives just at the stroke of the pen defy constitutions, general assemblies, elected officials, and just do whatever they want. And I think we're going down a very dangerous path, Tyler.
I agree. And to be fair, too, we were talking about President Obama and his executive orders. It certainly happened under Bush. So I think this is a bipartisan issue.
Right. It did.
Politicians thinking that they have more power than they really do. And I agree. We're heading down a bad path, and we have to rein it in. And I think it's one of the things AFP is constantly advocating for is a smaller government that we can hold accountable. And when our executives have these types of when they think they have these types of authorities, it really makes it difficult to hold them accountable for, which is why, we want to bring that back down to, our state legislature, to our Congress, people that we elect every couple of years. So it's, I think it's definitely an issue, and I think it's something that if not taken care of soon and addressed soon, it could be pretty dangerous for the country in the future.
All right, we're out of time. I want to thank Tyler Foote for being with us. Tyler is the executive director of Americans for Prosperity in Virginia. He's got 80,000 members in Virginia. Tyler has that number. Every time I get you on, it keeps going up and up and up. Pretty soon, you got to be at 100, right?
Soon enough, yeah. Hopefully in the next couple months. Once we're about to roll out a couple new initiatives, and I think once we get those out in the public, we're going to get we'll cross the 100,000 threshold. That
is a big number. More information, go to americansforprosperity.org/Virginia. americansforprosperity.org/Virginia. We also want to thank AFP. They have been a founding sponsor of the John Fredericks Radio Network, and their CEO, Tim Phillips, and their president believed in my vision in Virginia when no one else would or cared, and I want to thank them for that. Hey, Tyler, thanks for being with us, man.
Thank you, John.
All right.